Well, hello, this is Tom, and once again I've just come in from the fields with a lot on my mind, and I want to get off my mind. In this case, this has been on my mind for quite some time, long before we met, and I'm glad I finally have a chance here to bring it to you. This relates to cord cutting, very important for you to do in order to leave the matrix. We talk about the 3D entanglements and all that stuff, but this is about cutting cords with people, getting rid of emotional issues that bother you when you lay awake at night and things like that. So I want to get right to this because this is a class and I will be referencing this in the future. So I'm not going to tell a lot of stories, I'll just get right to it. And this too is applicable, I'm guessing, and it's probably a good guess, it's applicable for the galactics as well, because they're not used to being exposed to all these emotional issues, having to deal with taking out their own kind, etc. So I'll leave that alone, but I got a feeling this is good for everybody throughout the universe. So I believe it was a girlfriend I had, it was her therapist used this. And I took the ball and ran with it. Actually before that, it was 1975 when I was first exposed to this in retrospect. That's when a Berkeley, California, Berkeley professor came over to my workplace, the corporation I worked for. And it was a small class, maybe 12 people. And he and his graduate student taught this to us. I don't remember too much about it, but looking back, I'm like, yeah, that's what that was, exactly what that was. And years later, I got some negotiating tapes, cassette tapes, a set of 12 cassette tapes for negotiating, and lo and behold, same thing. And then I started realizing that hostage situations, for example, where you have a policeman or whatever, the designated person, has to defuse a situation where there's a person with maybe guns or a bomb and he has hostages. What do you do? If you're it, you got to defuse the situation. Well, this is what you do. Same thing. Therapist. This is what therapists do. If your therapist is not doing what I'm going to teach you here, fire them because they failed. This is very simple to learn. This is incredibly simple. Stupid simple to understand. And if your therapist is not using this, get rid of them because they're not doing a good job. Also, JFK used this, just to let you know. In the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1963, it was the interpersonal communication that occurred between JFK and Khrushchev, the Russian leader at the time. Now, JFK didn't actually meet him in person, but they had a third party essentially represent JFK. So it's the same thing. So this is used for that as well. It's negotiating. It goes back to negotiating, but it works. And another thing I'll talk about later here, but I want to mention now, is after my wife and I got married, we went to a thing called marriage encounters with the Lutheran Church. Now, we're not religious, so I don't know how that happened. We might have just gotten a flyer in the mail since they learned we were married. And so we went there thinking it would be a good thing, and it was a really good thing. And in that case, they used writing to do this. And I'll come back to that at the end. But all those things, and it used exactly the same thing, precisely the same thing. So universally, what I'm teaching you here is it works, period. It works. So moving on, I have the word bitchy couple here. This is an example that you can laugh at, but also help you remember the whole thing here I'm teaching you, because people tend to forget everything they're taught the next day. So hopefully you remember the bitchy couple, the bitchy couple. So just imagine you have a couple, you go along their day to day, and all of a sudden something pops up and they have an argument. And next thing you know, Each of them is calling each other nasty names. Yeah, you used to. I do that. You don't get. They're just going on and on and on and on and on and on. It's like swinging a baseball bat, strike after strike after strike, and getting nowhere. Or like rowing a boat where you have oars, but they're rowing in different directions. You're not making any progress. So for many hours of sitting there arguing and not getting anywhere. And then finally, when one of them gets so tired they can't handle it anymore, she just says, let's say it's the wife, I just want you to say you love me. I miss that. I don't get that. And bingo, finally, they're communicating with feelings. And then he responds, oh, but I do love you. Blah, 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 blah. Now he probably has make-up sex on his mind, so he probably says it for that reason. He's like, yeah, I can do it. Just kidding. But anyway, point is, for that split second out of that entire day of arguing, they're communicating with feelings. And again, I'm making this all up, but let's say invariably that leads to make-up sex. So they're fine, for a while. And the next day, after a little period of being okay, or a couple of days later, then they're right back at it. Something happened, and they're right back at it. You do it all over again. So have fun with that one, but it's just so you can remember this whole class. It's make-up sex. The point is, for exactly 2 seconds there, they were actually communicating with feelings, and it worked for that short time. Let's see. So I'm going to start the class now. That's the intro to the class, and now I get to start the class. And so, what is this thing? I was an employer, and I had employees, and so invariably, things would come up to my level. It was a small company, so people did come to me for help. And so they come to me saying, Tom, Mary and Joe are at it again. We got this happening, that happened. Here we go again. So I get Mary and Joe in the room, and I'd be the facilitator. And here's your class, so take notes. You have to choose a person A and a person B. Person A is going to say what they want to be understood by person B, and person B repeats it back. Very simple. Stated. It's very simply stated. But to do that very simple thing, you need a facilitator, almost invariably. Now, you can be the facilitator and one of them as well, but you really need to be a facilitator, an experienced facilitator first, and know your stuff before you assume that role of being person A or person B and being the facilitator. So anyway, you need a facilitator. I was the facilitator, and I'd have person A and person B in the room, and person A's job, or my job, would be to help figure out who goes first. Who's person A? Who's the first person A? Sometimes you just have to flip a coin and get them to agree. We're going to flip a coin. It'll decide who's person A or person B. Boom. If it's not obvious who's person A or person B, or if the facilitator doesn't override anything, just make that person A or person B. You just flip a coin. So anyway, you decide who's person A, and that's what they do. They simply explain what they want person B to understand. And they may need help. It's amazing how people need help understanding what they're trying to say. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the whole point of this thing. The facilitator's there trying to help person A understand what he's really trying to say. Now, you may come into the room with 20,000 things to talk about, but you can only deal with one at a time, so pick one thing. So person A explains what he wants understood by person B, but meanwhile, person B, his job is to understand person A. Now, forget about his situation. That's the whole point here. During this part one, person A speaking, person B is repeating back what he said. Now, person B will get their turn. They're guaranteed their turn, and we'll talk about that. You have to be settled this first piece. That's part two, as person B gets to speak. But in this round one, part one, person B gets to say one thing, and he repeats back to person A what person A says. And you're going to go back and forth, because B may get it but not quite, and A may be saying what they really want to be heard but not quite, and that's the facilitator. You got to go back and forth until bingo, everybody in the room, including the facilitator, understands or knows that person B finally understands person A. And at that point, person A, you can see it in their face. This is what you want to watch for as a facilitator. Person A just kind of says, yes, finally I'm understood. And you see it. You can see it right there in their expression. You can see that relief in their eye. That's what you want to look for. And guess what? 99.9% of the time, you're done. The situation is resolved right there. Incredibly simple. All you've done is person B finally understands person A's position. And person B will invariably say, oh, gee, John, I thought you meant this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I had it all wrong. That's how it goes. That's it. That's part one. If your therapist is not doing this, fire them. Now, part two, that's very important. That's part one. I'll move on quickly here because I don't want to spend a lot of time. Part two of that same conversation is, okay, now that A is understood, he's ready to leave the room because he's all happy. He's understood. And no, you ain't leaving yet, Joe Bo. Person B has his turn. Now, person B literally says, now person B may not always be happy, you know. Let's say person A, let's say the situation was person A went into the lunchroom and kept moving, you know, person B's lunch out of the way on the lower shelf of the refrigerator. You know, just go in, move it out of the way. And person B's going in there and every day, where's my lunch? What the hell's doing over here? You know. But it's been happening for a while. And he finally finds out the person A did it. Okay? Well, maybe the situation was, here I'm saying, the situation was that person A has a son. Maybe he's divorced, whatever, and his son comes, his young son comes over in a wheelchair for 2 weeks. While somebody's on vacation or whatever, the son for 2 weeks, he's there visiting his father every day at work at lunchtime. And the father cleared away a path in the refrigerator so that he, the son, could put his lunch there. Meanwhile, person B has no idea. He's just mad because somebody keeps moving his damn lunch, you know. So finally, that gets resolved. And person B's like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, if I'd have known, I'd have moved it myself, you know. But in some cases, person B is not happy. Let's say that same situation, similar situation, but person A took person B's parking spot, his beloved parking spot, you know. People are very attached to their parking spots, like being attached to your high school desk or something. Anyway, so in that case, he took his parking spot. Maybe there's a valid reason why A took B's parking spot. But B's not happy because now he's got a walker. He's got some other issue, you know. I'm not happy. So what does person B say under that circumstance? It's not resolved. Person B still has to, you know, has things he's got to resolve here. We're not done. So now it's person B's turn to speak. Now that A feels fine. Remember, A's ready to leave the room. He's happy. B is not happy or whatever, and he's got to respond. So here's part two. What does person B say? I'm going to say it 3 times so you get it. Now that I understand you, I feel blank. Now that I understand you, person A, I feel blank. One word. What's the German word for one word? Ein for one. Ein, uno, one word. And now that I understand you, person A, I feel blank. One word. Now, with a thermos incident, you could have said, I feel sheepish, or I feel bad. I feel clarified. I'll put this up as a slide, but here's this thing here you can get, and it has a whole lot of different adjectives on it. You know, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel enraged, I feel ashamed, I feel cautious, I feel smug, I feel depressed. All kinds of words on this sheet here, and that's person B's job is to say a word, not necessarily one of those, but state his true feelings. Now that I understand you, I feel blank. That's communicating with feelings. That's what it is. I feel blank. Now the word like, L-I-K-E, is taboo. Well, I feel like you, blah, 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 blah. Well, that doesn't work. Blah, 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 blah. It's just a bunch of left brain crap. A bunch of objective stuff being thrown in there. You don't want that. It's absolutely taboo. The word like is taboo. Just smack them over the head when they say that word. It's I feel blank. Period. One word. Now you can get creative with the word as you get more experience with this. Here, there's a bright light. There's a light bulb there, staring me in the face. I look over and I get light bulbed. You know, whoa. Maybe you can say under some circumstance, well, gee, John, when you did that, you know, I felt the light bulb. You know, I felt rear-ended or something. You know, unexpected. Boo! What? What? You know, I feel whatever that all is in one word. Call it light bulb. I feel light bulbed. You know, I feel rear-ended, or I feel shocked. So you can take, you know, long expressions like you might fill in after the word like. I feel like you blah, 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 blah. You can take all that junk and condense it down into one word, like light bulbed or rear-ended. You can get creative. It becomes fun after a while. We'll talk about it in a minute. So person B, that's what they do. When you did, now that I understand that, John, I feel blank. And then it's A's job to repeat that back. That's a lot easier. Oh, you feel blank. Yes. And very quickly, you know, they come to that understanding. Because it's one word. There's only one word that person they has to understand. So that's part two in this negotiating process. But you never get to that. You almost invariably, part one, when person B understands part A, it's over because everybody is happy. Everybody feels understood. Everybody's okay. So I want to talk more about part B though here. So you never get the part B. It's rare. I mean, I've done these many times, and 99% of the time, you're done when the first part is done. Step one is done. So here, but step two, nonetheless, is still critically important and valuable to practice on and use daily. And I recommend you do this starting right now. And what's an example would be, let's say you're eating dinner and you take the pepper and you shake it onto your plate and everything's fine. You put it down, and then your wife picks it up and she shakes it on her and she slams it on the table. Like, huh? You're sitting there, you're really like in shock. And so seize the opportunity. My point here is really part three, is seize the opportunity and practice. This is practice, practice, practice. Seize those opportunities. You know, don't go for the big fish right off the bat. Go for these little things. If your wife doesn't open the door if you don't open the door for your wife on the car, or if you move a blanket or pillow on the couch and it keeps, it bothers her. But here she actually showed it. You put the pepper shaker down and she grabbed it and something happened. And what do you say? Well, you're communicating with feelings. You say, well, gee, dear, honey, got to choose the right word here. Dear, Diane, gee, when you did that, it made me feel blank. When you shook the pepper and made that little scene, I'm lost. I'm confused. It surprised me. I feel surprised. There you go. There's a term. There's a way of turning things around, making it one word. You surprised me. Well, I feel surprised. And you end on that verb. See, the beauty of this too is that she can't argue with that. If you put a feeling there, I feel surprised. I feel hurt. Hurt's a good word, a good safe word to use. It can lead to other things, but if you're at a loss of words, use the word hurt. When you did that with the pepper shaker, I feel hurt. While you're searching for the word, I feel hurt. I'm confused. Everything's been going so well, I'm just confused. But you can't argue with the word. See, if you just keep it to the word, I talked about everything been going so well. I shouldn't have said that. I should say when you did it with the pepper shaker, I feel confused. She can't argue with that adjective. They never can. That's the beauty of this, communicating with feelings. They can't argue if you just use the I feel blank rule. There's no argument there. If you feel happy, you're happy. You feel sad, you're sad. If you feel confused, you're confused. No, you don't feel confused. No, she can't come back with that. So the beauty of it is, if you stick with the I feel blank rule, there's no arguments can possibly pursue after that, can gel after that, because there's nothing to argue about. You're expressing your feelings, and they have no choice but to accept it. And then help them respond by having them fill in the blank. Well, now that you feel confused, I feel confused too, or whatever, from there you can go on. So practice that on these small things around the house, at work, at home, anywhere. Just seize the opportunity. That's what I've done all my life. I just seize those opportunities and practice that, because before long it'll become second nature to you. So that's the lesson. There's two parts here. The first part is something a little more formal. There's a person A and a person B, and you're understanding the other person. That's your job, is to understand the other person. And the second part is using the I feel blank rule. And in that case, you're actually person A. If you're shaking the pepper shaker, you're actually stepping up to the plate right off the bat and being person A. You're saying, hey, when you do that, I feel confused. You're telling your other half, I feel confused. So you're being person A and you're communicating with feelings right then and there. So in the big picture here, when you first started, you have person A explaining to person B, and person B repeating it back, and this little bigger formal process. What is A really doing there? Well, A wants to feel understood. That's their bottom line feeling. A wanted to feel understood. The thermos incident with his kid and all that stuff, he wants to feel understood. So it's really a feeling that he was portraying, although it was portrayed objectively. The feeling was that, hey, I want to be understood, and this is what I want understood. So that really was communicating with feelings for person A right up front. Here with the pepper shaker incident, you're just stating point blank, I feel blank. That's what I want to. That's what I want heard. I want that heard. I feel blank. And since you're using feelings, they can't argue with it. So it's a beautiful way to communicate. And you'll find that you can cut those cords right away. You'll solve the issue and cut those cords right away. So that's that. I think I can call it quits now. Except marriage encounters, I got my note on marriage encounters. Marriage encounter was where exactly the same thing. And this works really good if you have a little more complex issue and you don't have a facilitator. So in this case, what we did, we went to this Lutheran church thing, marriage encounter, which I recommend you go. And what's in front of the room is a couple who is rehashing their old problem. They're acting. And they're rehashing some problem that they had, some stereotype problem that they had, a real thing that they had. And they're up there, and they'll start crying. And I don't know if it's an act or not, but people in the audience start crying. Not me, of course, but the point is they do stuff in front of the room to get you kind of worked up, so you kind of can relate it to your situation. And then they give you an assignment. Okay, now it's your turn, class. Each of you, write about it. I forget exactly the kind of things they would talk about, but you would write about anything, something the other person does that bothers you, say, related to sleeping. You know, she snores, you don't snore, or whatever. She gets up and hits the bathroom a lot at night, whatever. It can be anything. But pick some topic, and you both write down what you want to be heard. So all of you who write, you know how hard it is or how fun it is, depending on how you take writing. It takes a while to figure out what to write, to make sure you're saying the right thing. So that's good. So take all the time you need to get it all down, get down what you want to need, rewrite it, condense it, do whatever you have to do to make it clear what you want to be heard. In this case, they sent one of us would go back to the hotel room, write, and the other one would stay in the conference room where the seminar was and write. So you're in separate rooms and you're writing. You got an hour or whatever it is to write out, and then you exchange. And I don't remember if you're in the same room or not. Then, but it doesn't really matter. But you exchange your letters, and then you read the other party's letter. And the beauty of that, see, this is where you can get away without a facilitator up to a point here, because by writing, you've served the purpose of the facilitator, of needing a facilitator, because you've worked that, making it clear what you want to say. And then likewise, when you finally read your other half's note, she's not in the room with you, right? At that point, you're still separate, say. And so you have no choice but to read what she wants you to hear. So it's all right there in black and white, literally, or blue and white, depending on the color of your pen. And there you go. You now understand what she wants you to hear. Then you get back together and you do the obvious thing to make sure that you're understanding what she wants you to hear, and on the other side of the fence is she understanding what you want heard. And I forget how it goes after that, but you get the idea. It's exactly the same thing. As the negotiating, as JFK, as hostage situation, as your therapist should do. This is all what a therapist should be doing, with or without the piece of paper. So there you have it. Enjoy it. But practice. I'm going to call it the salt and pepper shaker stuff. Do the salt and pepper shaker stuff all the time, constantly. Look for little things that you can work on and use the I feel blank rule and start practicing using those adjectives. Critically important. And you'll find that the cord cutting, resolving those issues, is a piece of cake.